Right now, somewhere in the quiet gulf between Mars and Jupiter, something is unfolding that should be impossible. An object the size of a mountain drifts through the dark, breathing great plumes of gas into the vacuum of space. Those plumes blaze emerald in telescope images, luminous, unmistakable, like frozen smoke under a blacklight. They should act like thrusters, pushing the object off course, nudging it into a wobble, the way every comet in history has behaved. But this one does not move, not a fraction of a degree, not a hair's breadth from its predicted orbit. It holds its path with an unnatural steadiness, as if the laws of motion themselves had stepped aside. The system that first noticed it was not built for mystery. Atlas, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, is a network of robotic telescopes in Hawaii and Chile, scanning the sky for killer asteroids on collision courses with Earth. It is an automated watchman, programmed to sound the alarm. Most nights, Atlas records nothing remarkable. The endless glitter of stars, the faint crawl of known asteroids, the occasional satellite flare. But on the 1st of July, 2025, at 1:13 a.m., in the Rio Hurtado station, one of those robotic eyes caught something strange. A faint smear of light, magnitude 19, hardly more than a suggestion against the noise of the cosmos. The software did the math, calculated the orbit, and sounded an alert that chilled the night operator to his bones. This was no asteroid. The eccentricity was greater than 1. This was interstellar, another visitor. The operator knew the names. Everyone in astronomy does. 1I, Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, a dark, tumbling shard that accelerated without explanation, leaving scientists stunned and conspiracy forums ablaze. 2I, divided by Borisov, discovered in 2019, a classic comet with a long, streaming tail, proof that not every interstellar guest has to be strange. And now, the third. 3I, divided by Atlas. 3 interstellar objects, in less than a decade, after billions of years of silence. That fact alone was enough to rattle the experts. But the behavior of Atlas was worse, much worse. At first, nothing about it seemed unusual, a blurry dot on a telescope feed. But as the days passed, its coma swelled unnaturally fast. The haze of gas and dust surrounding it ballooned outward until it rivaled the diameter of Jupiter itself. By mid-August, amateur astronomers were pointing their backyard telescopes toward the coordinates and seeing the impossible. A comet glowing green. Not faint green, not subtle, but vivid, emerald, a beacon burning against the black sky. The images poured in from Arizona, Namibia, Chile, New Mexico, each one confirming the same truth. Atlas was alive with light. Green comets are not unheard of. They glow when sunlight excites diatomic carbon, C2 molecules, in their coma. But Atlas was wrong. Its spectrum showed carbon dioxide dominance, far more CO2 than H2O, unusual for its distance from the Sunday. And then came the anomaly that no one could ignore, nickel without iron. In nature, nickel and iron are partners, forged together in the hearts of stars, inseparable in cosmic debris. To see nickel's spectral lines without iron was like finding a voice without a body. Natural? Perhaps. But to many, it looked engineered. A fingerprint that did not belong. And still, the strangest thing was its silence. The rocket effect was missing. The gas should have pushed it off course, measurable in the calculations of orbital mechanics. But when scientists tracked its path, it was steady, unbending, as if anchored by something we could not see. It vented but did not move. It burned but did not sway. Every comet wobbles when it breathes. This one refused. The news spread cautiously at first. Reuters called it the third interstellar comet, unusual but safe, stressing that it posed no threat to Earth. But the cautious tone could not contain the spark. Within days, Live Science was highlighting its strange chemistry. The debrief ran headlines asking if Atlas might be artificial, a probe disguised as ice and dust. On social media, the green glow was irresistible. TikTok creators overlaid eerie music on telescope shots. YouTube live streams counted down to perihelion like it was a rocket launch. In America, late-night comedians joked about little green men riding a big green comet, but beneath the laughter was something else. Unease. The timing made it worse. Atlas was not alone. The year 2025 had brought a parade of comets: Swan, Lemon, Atlas, K1, Neat, Stereo 7 in all, streaking across the sky in the same season. To pattern-seeking humans, it looked less like coincidence and more like camouflage, a swarm in which one traveler did not belong. What better way for something to arrive than hidden in a crowd? And then came the silence of the giants. Amateur astronomers kept sharing images, but the great observatories, Hubble, Webb, Gemini, went quiet. No press conferences, no glossy images, no public statements. The world's best instruments, trained on the most extraordinary visitor of the century, had nothing to say. Official explanations mentioned scheduling, other priorities, technical constraints. But to the watching public, the silence was louder than any words. What were they not telling us? By early September, Atlas had become more than an object. It was a question, a riddle, written in green fire across the night. Every telescope feed, every forum post, every news clip only deepened the sense of unease. Was it natural, a relic from a colder nursery under another star, carrying alien chemistry we had never seen before? Or was it unnatural, a machine stabilized against the push of its own breath, watching us even as we watched it? No answer came, only the green glow, steady and silent, refusing to explain itself. And so, Atlas slipped from being a discovery to being a presence. It was no longer just a comet, it was a messenger. Whether natural or not, whether relic or artifact, it carried meaning. It told us that the universe still has secrets, that our laws are not absolute, that our sky is not finished with us. Standing under the October night, looking up at that green haze, you could not help but feel it. Awe, fear, wonder, a whisper in the dark that said, "You do not yet know enough." This is the story of Atlas, the stranger who appeared in silence, the messenger who broke the rules, the visitor who asked a question we cannot yet answer. And as it rushed toward its fiery meeting with the sun, one truth settled like a weight in the chest of everyone who dared to look up. The universe had just reminded us that we are not the only storytellers here. The discovery of Atlas was not the work of a lone astronomer staring through an eyepiece. Those days are gone, folded into the romance of history. The watchers of today are machines, 4 robotic telescopes scattered across Hawaii and Chile, working night after night without pause. Their name is blunt and almost bureaucratic. The Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, Atlas, a defense shield, not a dream, built not to wonder, but to warn. Atlas was conceived in fear. Fear of asteroids the size of mountains tearing into our planet. Fear of a repeat of Tunguska or Chicxulub. In congressional hearings, in PowerPoint decks shown to lawmakers in Washington, the system was justified as insurance, a pair of robotic eyes in the sky, scanning the heavens for killers. For most nights, it performed its duty with dull efficiency. The telescopes swept the same patches of sky, compared new images with old, and flagged any moving dot that might one day intersect with Earth's fragile path. Most of the time, the alerts were routine. Space is full of rocks, but fewer threats. Atlas was a soldier on endless patrol, finding little worth reporting, but sometimes duty collides with destiny. July 1st, 2025, Rio Hurtado Station, in the dry mountains of Chile. The operators on shift were not expecting history, just another night, another sky survey. Then the alert came. A dot, faint and fuzzy, moving against the backdrop of stars. The software processed its orbit, and the numbers changed everything. Hyperbolic, not bound to the Sunday, not of this system. An interstellar intruder had been spotted by a system designed to protect Earth from homegrown threats. That irony was not lost on the people who built Atlas. It had been designed as a shield, but it had become a window, a tool of planetary defense that had instead caught the gaze of the universe. For a moment, the mission statements and congressional hearings didn't matter. What mattered was the green messenger now sliding into our attention, a visitor whose very existence rewrote the story we thought we were telling. The watchers of the sky were not just machines, though. Behind every robotic telescope are the humans who interpret the data, the astronomers who pass the orbits, the technicians who keep the optics polished, the cooling systems humming, the computers alive. In the silence of that Chilean desert, A handful of people saw the first frames of Atlas on their monitors. A ghostly smear, a dot that shouldn't be there. For them, it was not just numbers. It was a shiver down the spine. They knew enough history to recognize the rarity of what they were seeing. One eye, Oumuamua, had electrified the world in 2017. Two eye divided by Borisov had followed in 2019. And now, in their own watch, the third. News of discoveries travels fast in astronomy. Within hours, the data was on servers, the coordinates shared across networks, observatories in other countries pointing their lenses to confirm the find. The watchers became a chorus, each adding notes of confirmation. Yes, it is real. Yes, it is moving too fast to be local. Yes, it is hyperbolic. And then, slowly, more details. Its coma was swelling. Its light curve was not matching predictions. Its color hinted at something strange. The whisper spread across digital corridors like wildfire. This one is different. And yet, in a way, the discovery was expected. Astronomers had calculated long ago that interstellar objects must be common. Millions, perhaps billions of fragments drift between the stars, shaken loose from their birth systems. Our solar system, with its vigilant machines, was bound to catch more than one. The surprise was not that Atlas came. The surprise was that it came so soon. 3 in less than a decade. 3 after billions of years of silence. The watchers of the sky were ready to see, but not ready to explain. Across the Pacific, in control rooms in Hawaii, other Atlas telescopes echoed the discovery. The system's name, once bureaucratic, now felt prophetic. Atlas, in Greek myth, held up the heavens. And now Atlas, the telescope, had found something holding up a mirror to our understanding of the heavens. The symmetry was poetic, eerie, almost scripted. In America, NASA officials briefed reporters carefully, stressing that the object posed no threat, that it was simply passing through. But behind the words was the same unease. We had caught sight of something we were not ready to see. For the scientists, it was a triumph and a burden. They had spent careers preparing to defend Earth, not to decode messages from the stars. Yet here it was, a glowing green object venting gas without motion, carrying chemistry that did not belong, moving on a path that would never return. They knew they had only weeks, months at most, to gather data. Every night mattered. Every observation could be the last, before Atlas slipped away forever. The watchers of the sky were not just observers anymore. They were witnesses. And as word spread beyond the community of astronomers, as journalists picked up the story, as images of a green comet filled timelines and screens, the role of the watchers expanded again. They were no longer just scientists. They had become narrators of a mystery the whole world wanted to hear. A mystery that began with a faint dot in the Chilean desert, caught by machines built for war against asteroids, now transformed into a story about something stranger than war, stranger than science, stranger than anything they had been trained to expect. Atlas had done its job. It had watched. It had found. And what it found was not an enemy, not a killer rock, but a question written in green light. The watchers of the sky passed that question to us. And as the comet grew brighter, as the glow deepened, as the silence from the great observatories became harder to ignore, we all became watchers. A planet of eyes turned upward, waiting to see what the stranger would do next. The story of Atlas did not truly begin on the 1st of July, 2025. That was simply the moment when our machines noticed. In truth, the stranger had been here longer, moving quietly across the background of our sky, leaving faint fingerprints that no one had cared to see. Only after the discovery did astronomers dig through the archives, opening old image files, checking surveys frame by frame, and there it was blurred, half hidden, but present. Atlas had been captured months before its name was spoken. This process has a name, recovery. It is the act of recovering an object before its discovery, finding its ghost in old photographs. To outsiders, it sounds like trickery, but to astronomers, it is revelation. Every recovery image extends the timeline, sharpens the orbit, transforms a fleeting mystery into a mapped reality. For Atlas, recovery turned whispers into a voice. The Rubin Observatory, still in its commissioning phase, revealed frames from June, a faint smear drifting among the stars. At the time, it was just noise, nothing remarkable. But when coordinates from July were overlaid, the truth came into focus. The object had already crossed the border of our system before we knew it existed. The discovery was like finding old security footage of a stranger already inside your home. It was not just the presence of the visitor that was unsettling. It was the realization that it had been here all along, slipping past unnoticed. Atlas had been walking through our sky, and we had not seen it. And the recovery images told more than just when, they told how. With the added data, astronomers could trace the path backward, far beyond our neighborhood, deep into interstellar space. The numbers spoke with brutal clarity. This object had been traveling for millions of years, flung from a system we will never identify, wandering alone through the void until chance and geometry brought it across our watch. Its speed was unforgiving, its trajectory ruthless. There would be no capture, no orbit, no return. Atlas was not here to stay. It was only passing through, and soon it would be gone forever. The realization carried a strange weight. Every comet born in our system is, in a sense, family. We know their cycles, their habits, their kinship with the frozen outskirts of the Oort cloud. But Atlas was different. It was a foreigner, carrying the chemistry of another sun, another disk of dust and gas, another history we cannot touch. To look at its faint smear in a June photograph was to glimpse not just an object, but another world. A world lost in time, one that had thrown this shard across the galaxy like a bottle into the sea. And yet, even as the orbit was refined, even as the timeline stretched backward, the strangeness only deepened. The brightness did not match the models. Comets brighten as they near the sun, a steady, predictable climb, like a dimmer switch turning slowly up. Atlas did not. Its light curve jumped, surged, stalled. It behaved not like a steady flame, but like a stuttering heartbeat. Observers compared it to a car engine coughing, a rhythm out of tune. Something inside was wrong, or different, or both. The recovery frames showed the coma growing earlier than expected. It was already awake in June, when most comets at that distance are still frozen solid. The sublimation of water ice should not have started yet. And yet, there it was, a halo spreading like a secret already told. Whatever Atlas was made of, it did not follow our rules. It did not need the sun's heat the way our comets do. It breathed on its own schedule. When this news spread through the astronomy community, the tone shifted. What had first been excitement, another interstellar visitor, became unease. Atlas was not behaving like Borisov, the comfortingly normal interstellar comet of 2019. It was misbehaving, breaking patterns, refusing to fit the boxes we had prepared. On forums, professionals used careful language, unusual, anomalous, unexpected. But in private emails and late-night calls, the words were plainer. This doesn't make sense. For the public, the recovery data was invisible, locked in jargon and graphs. But for those who understood, it carried the same chill as Oumuamua in 2017. Once again, the sky had delivered a visitor that refused to play fair. Once again, the universe was speaking in riddles. And the riddle this time began not with the discovery, but with the revelation that we had already missed it for weeks. Atlas had been in the room long before we noticed the door. There is something unsettling about hindsight. Looking back and realizing the signs were always there, waiting. Like finding photographs of a loved one with a stranger you never knew existed, years before the truth came out. That was Atlas in the archives, a faint smear, unnoticed at the time, now glowing with retroactive significance. It was proof that the sky holds secrets in plain sight, secrets only revealed when the story catches up. By the end of September, the orbit was locked, the trajectory precise. Atlas would sweep inside the orbit of Mars, brush past the sun, and then vanish outward, never to return. Its path was clean, its mathematics exact, and yet the behavior of its coma, its brightness, its chemistry, all of it was a blur of anomalies. The recovery frames had turned the discovery into a story, but not a story with answers. They had only made the questions louder. And so, the watchers of the sky leaned closer to their monitors, pulled more data, refined more numbers. The world beyond the astronomy community still saw only the headlines: a green comet, a visitor from another star. But the recovery images whispered a deeper truth to those who listened. This object was older, stranger, and more deliberate than anyone wanted to admit. It had been here before we noticed. It would leave before we understood, and in between, it would remind us that the sky is never empty. It is full of traces, waiting for eyes sharp enough and lucky enough to see them. Most years, the sky gives us one comet worth remembering. If we are lucky, maybe two. A streak of light over a quiet horizon, a fuzzy green ball in a telescope's eyepiece, enough to fill a headline or two before fading back into the background of stars. But 2025 was not like most years. It was the year the heavens felt overcrowded, the year of too many comets. It began with whispers. In early September, C divided by 2025 R2, nicknamed Swan, began to brighten. At first, it was faint, invisible to the naked eye, just another line in the astronomical catalogues. But then, suddenly, it surged. Within days, its coma expanded, its tail stretched like a brushstroke across the sky, and by mid-month, it was glowing green, magnitude 6, on the edge of visibility, without instruments. In dark skies of the southern hemisphere, people stepped outside and saw it. A jade smudge above the horizon, a comet bright enough to feel personal. And Swan was only the beginning. Hot on its heels came Lemon, with predictions that it would blaze to magnitude 3 or 4, bright enough for anyone to see. Then Atlas K1, then Atlas G3, then Neat, then Stereo 7 comets in all, parading across the same season like a cosmic carnival. For amateur astronomers, it was a feast. Wide-angle photographs captured 2, 3, sometimes even 4 comets in a single frame. For the public, it was a wonder not seen in generations. For scientists, it was a statistical anomaly, a clustering that begged for explanation. Coincidence was the official answer. Orbital mechanics is messy, and sometimes the dice fall this way. Just as highways funnel traffic into the same city, gravitational lanes can funnel comets into the same stretch of sky. That was the rational explanation. But humans are not rational creatures. We are pattern-seeking, story-making, omen-reading beings. And to anyone standing under the October sky, seeing streak after streak of greenish light, coincidence felt like too small a word. Because among that parade, one was not like the others. One had come from beyond the stars. Atlas, the stranger in the crowd, the interstellar guest wearing the same costume as the locals. To some, this was camouflage. What better way for a probe or a messenger to arrive than hidden among a swarm? A single comet might draw suspicion. A half dozen? That looked like nature's chaos. And within that chaos, the green messenger could glide unseen, its anomalies masked by the noise of the season. The media picked up on the imagery. The year of too many comets became a phrase repeated in headlines, a phrase heavy with implication. News anchors spoke of the parade with awe, but always circled back to Atlas. It was the wild card, the one with the interstellar passport, the one that refused to behave. Late-night comedians joked about Earth being the venue for a cosmic convention. Online, forums filled with theories. Was Atlas part of a swarm sent deliberately? Was it a scout arriving under cover of cometary traffic? Was it chance or choreography? Meanwhile, telescopes kept recording. Swan's green glow grew brighter, then faded as quickly as it had come. Lemon's long tail swept across autumn skies, a spectacle for backyard observers. The others flared, dimmed, followed their arcs. Each one obeyed the script of cometary life. Each one, except Atlas. It remained steady, strange, emerald, refusing to explain itself. For ordinary people, the year of comets was magical. Parents woke their children in the middle of the night to point at the sky, to share the fleeting gift of light. Photographers drove for hours to find dark horizons, capturing streaks of brilliance against mountain ranges and deserts. In small towns, old superstitions stirred. Too many comets at once must mean something: war, famine, change. In ancient days, comets were harbingers of doom. In 2025, they were harbingers of wonder. But the unease remained, the sense that this was not just coincidence, that the sky was trying to tell us something. And through it all, Atlas glided quietly in the background. Not the brightest, not the most spectacular, but the most unsettling. It wore the same green as Swan, the same cometary cloak as Lemon, but its origin was foreign, its chemistry alien, its behavior impossible. To look at the parade was to marvel. To look at Atlas within the parade was to question. By October, the phrase "too many comets" had become more than description. It had become mood. a sense that the universe was crowding us, pressing in, sending not one message but several, all at once. And in that crowded chorus, Atlas sang the strangest note, the one that did not belong, the one we could not ignore. And so, as the nights grew shorter and the comet parade filled the heavens, humanity found itself staring upward, caught between awe and unease. Too many comets, too many lights in the sky, and somewhere among them, one green messenger that refused to play by the rules. Coincidence or cover? Chaos or choreography? The question lingered with every photograph, every headline, every sleepless night under the stars. Physics is supposed to be the anchor of the universe. It is the one constant, the one law we can trust. You drop an apple, it falls. You fire a rocket, it accelerates. You watch a comet breathe gas into space, and you expect the recoil to nudge it off its path. That is the rule. That is the script comets have followed for centuries. The rocket effect is simple. Sunlight strikes ice, ice sublimates into vapor, the vapor jets outward, and the comet is pushed like a natural spacecraft. It is so reliable that astronomers use it to predict cometary paths with astonishing accuracy. Until now. Atlas broke that rule. It vented gas in spectacular plumes, emerald in the telescopes, unmistakable in the data. Its coma swelled to a size greater than Jupiter. Its tail spread across millions of kilometers. Every indication said it was alive with activity. But when the numbers were checked, when the orbital calculations were run, the result was absurd. There was no measurable non-gravitational acceleration. The object breathed, but did not move. The comparisons came quickly. In 2017, Oumuamua had stunned the world by accelerating without visible outgassing. It was as if an invisible hand had pushed it. In 2019, Borisov reassured us, a comet that obeyed the rules, venting gas, accelerating exactly as expected. But Atlas was a contradiction in flesh, the opposite of Oumuamua, yet equally impossible. Here was an object that vented gas but showed no acceleration, a paradox so blatant it felt like mockery. 3 interstellar visitors in less than a decade, each one breaking the rules in its own way. Together, they formed a triangle of impossibility. The theories began. Perhaps Atlas was enormous, its nucleus so massive that the thrust of its jets was insignificant. But Hubble's observations set an upper limit of less than 6 kilometers, far too small to shrug off jets this strong. Perhaps the jets were perfectly balanced, streaming symmetrically in all directions, cancelling each other out. But nature is never so precise. Comets fracture, vent unevenly, tumble. Perfect symmetry belongs in design, not accident. Perhaps, some suggested, we simply had not observed long enough. That given time, the acceleration would reveal itself. But the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and Atlas remained steady, breathing without moving, breaking without bending. For scientists, this was agony. The models they trusted had no room for this behavior. Every equation said it should wobble, every calculation demanded a shift, but the universe refused to comply. And so, late at night, in private conversations, the forbidden thought crept in. What if Atlas is not just balanced? What if it is stabilized? The idea is radioactive in the halls of science. To suggest deliberate control is to risk ridicule, to step into the shadows of speculation and conspiracy. But silence does not erase the question. If Oumuamua could accelerate without gas, and Atlas could vent without acceleration, then something more than coincidence is at work. Nature may be stranger than we think, but how strange is too strange before we ask if intelligence is involved? The public had no such restraint. Online, the theories spread like wildfire. Some said Atlas was a probe, a Bracewell messenger designed to masquerade as a comet. Others claimed the clustering of comets in 2025 was camouflage, a coordinated arrival. The phrase, artificial stabilization, jumped from obscure papers into headlines and forums. For every scientist insisting on caution, there were 1,000 voices asking, what if it's true? Even within academia, unease grew. If Atlas is natural, then cometary physics is broken. Our models of sublimation, mass, thrust, everything we rely on, need rewriting. If Atlas is artificial, then we are not alone. Either way, the implications are seismic. To admit that physics itself might be rebelling is to admit that the universe is not the orderly machine we wanted it to be. And night after night, Atlas glided on, silent and green. Jets flared from its surface, but its course was steady as a steel rail. Telescopes tracked it, amateurs photographed it, and still it refused to wobble. A ship venting smoke but never drifting. A car burning fuel but gliding forward untouched. A paradox made visible in the sky. The rebellion of Atlas was not loud. It was quiet, steady, undeniable. A reminder that even our most trusted laws are not laws at all, but understandings fragile, provisional, waiting to be overturned. And as Atlas drew closer to the sun, as its activity grew even more dramatic, the silence of its motion became deafening. Physics had always been our anchor. But now, in the face of a green messenger that refused to obey, physics itself seemed to be whispering, "You do not yet know enough." Every comet carries a chemical fingerprint, a record of the world that birthed it. When sunlight hits ice, the ice sublimates, gas streams into space, and that gas glows with the identity of its parent system. Astronomers have studied these fingerprints for centuries, building a library of signatures: water vapor, carbon monoxide, methane, dust grains laced with metals. The patterns are familiar, predictable, a family of chemistry repeated across our solar system. But when the green messenger revealed its spectrum, the fingerprints were not familiar. They were foreign. The James Webb Space Telescope caught it first. In August, Webb turned its infrared eye toward Atlas and found something astonishing: carbon dioxide lines dominating the spectrum, stronger than anything seen at that distance from the Sunday. CO2 was everywhere, overwhelming the signal, while water vapor, the standard driver of cometary activity, was strangely weak. Normally, inside 2 astronomical units, H2O is king. It sublimates first, powering the coma, pushing the comet into brilliance. But Atlas was not playing that script. It was breathing carbon dioxide as if it came from a nursery, colder and harsher than ours, a cradle where water froze deeper and CO2 reigned supreme. That was the first shock. The second came with the metals. Spectrographs revealed clear, undeniable nickel emission lines, strong, bright, unmistakable. But where nickel appears, iron always follows. They are twins in nature, forged together in the hearts of stars, born side by side in supernovae, bound in cosmic debris. To find nickel without iron was like finding a twin walking alone. Astronomers stared at the data and searched for explanations. Could it be an observational trick, a calibration error? Could it be dust scattering differently? The checks came back clean. The nickel was real. The iron was absent. Nickel without iron is not just unusual, it is unnatural. In laboratories, metallurgists create alloys, refining metals to highlight one, suppress another. Seeing nickel alone whispered of processes we do not understand, processes that might look less like geology and more like engineering. And then there was the color. Green is not unusual for comets. Diatomic carbon, fluorescing under sunlight, glows emerald. It is beautiful, eerie, and familiar. But Atlas glowed too early, too bright, too intensely. Its coma lit up in green while it was still far from the sun, at distances where most comets are still black specks. The strength of the emission made no sense. It was as if Atlas was carrying reservoirs of molecules we had never catalogued, or as if something was amplifying the fluorescence deliberately. Together, the chemistry formed a portrait of strangeness. CO2 in excess, H2O deficient, nickel alone, iron missing, green light too strong, too soon. No comet in our system matched it. Borisov, the second interstellar visitor, had been unusual but still recognizable. A comet rich in carbon monoxide, yes, but still playing within the expected boundaries. Atlas was outside the boundaries altogether. Scientists reached for metaphors. One called it a chemical accent from a foreign tongue. Another said it was like tasting a spice you've never known before. The poetry was unintentional, but telling. The chemistry of Atlas was alien in the truest sense. Not from here, not from our star, not from our family. But as with its physics, the chemistry invited forbidden thoughts. If the fingerprints looked engineered, could they be? Was Atlas coated, modified, designed to shine in certain lines and not others? Was the absence of iron a signal, a marker, a way of saying, pay attention? Most scientists recoiled from the idea, but outside the walls of academia, the speculation roared. Online forums filled with diagrams of nickel alloys, theories about ancient probes, whispers of alien metallurgy. The word artificial appeared again and again, no longer confined to conspiracy corners, but slipping into mainstream headlines. For those who resisted the pull of speculation, the mystery was still profound. If Atlas was natural, then it was proof that other star systems produce comets with chemistries wildly different from our own. If it was natural, then our library of fingerprints was incomplete, our assumptions naive. Each anomaly, CO2 dominance, nickel without iron, premature green glow, was a clue, pointing to environments we had never imagined, processes we had never modeled, possibilities we had never considered. Natural or not, Atlas was a revelation. Night after night, telescopes recorded its breath. Graphs filled with spectral lines, peaks and valleys, like the voice print of a foreign song. And every peak whispered the same message. This is not familiar. This is not local. This is the chemistry of a stranger. For those watching the live streams, the details were invisible. They saw only the glow, the green smudge against the night. But behind that glow was a story written in atoms, a story older than our sun, a story born under alien skies. And whether it was the song of a natural wanderer or the code of something built, the effect was the same. Awe. A reminder that the universe is bigger than our categories, richer than our textbooks, stranger than we dare to believe. Atlas was not just breaking physics. It was breaking chemistry. And in that double rebellion, it was saying something we could not yet translate. Something vast, something urgent, something meant to make us stop and look and wonder. Every family has its rebels. The family of interstellar visitors is no different. In less than a decade, humanity has seen 3 of them. 3 objects wandering into our system from the deep between the stars, and together they do not form a pattern. They form a paradox. The first was 1I, Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, a sliver of darkness tumbling end over end. It looked nothing like the comets we knew. No coma, no tail, no green glow. It was a shard of something, cigar-shaped or pancake-thin, depending on the model, reflecting sunlight like polished metal. And then, the anomaly. As it left, it accelerated. No visible gas, no sublimation, just motion without cause. Astronomers reached for explanations. Hydrogen ice, fractal dust, outgassing too subtle to see but none satisfied. To this day, Oumuamua remains a riddle. Was it a fragment of rock? A shard of nitrogen ice? Or a probe, as Harvard's Avi Loeb dared to suggest? A light sail pushed by forces invisible. Then came 2I divided by Borisov in 2019. Where Oumuamua was mute and bizarre, Borisov was a relief. A comet, in the classic sense, a long tail, a coma, gas, and dust streaming in ways we could model. Its chemistry was odd, rich in carbon monoxide, but not impossible. It was the normal sibling, the one that reassured us that interstellar objects could behave like the family we knew. For many, Borisov was proof that Oumuamua was just a fluke, an outlier, a strange fragment but nothing more. And then came 3I divided by Atlas in 2025. Neither mute nor normal, a hybrid. Like Borisov, it bloomed with a massive coma, jets streaming, green glow blazing. But like Oumuamua, it defied physics. It vented gas without acceleration, glowed with chemistry that made no sense, carried fingerprints that did not belong. It sat between the 2 extremes, not silent, not ordinary, but noisy and wrong. The misfit child of the family, the rebel. Together, the 3 form what one astronomer called a triangle of impossibility. Oumuamua, acceleration without gas. Borisov, gas with acceleration, as expected. Atlas, gas without acceleration. Each one contradicts the others. Each one forces us to redraw the map of what interstellar visitors can be. And taken together, they suggest something larger, that the universe is full of wanderers stranger than we ever imagined. For scientists, this was thrilling and terrifying. 3 objects in less than 10 years, after billions of years of nothing. Either we have been impossibly lucky, or the galaxy is far more crowded than we thought. If interstellar visitors are this common, then our system may be nothing more than a train station on a busy galactic line. And if that is true, then Atlas, Oumuamua, and Borisov are the first members of a vast, unseen family. And what a family it is! One single silent It was no longer possible to dismiss Oumuamua as a one-off. It was no longer possible to file Borisov as the exception that proved the rule. With Atlas, the rule itself broke, and the family was born. 3 siblings, bound not by similarity, but by strangeness, each rewriting the script. And so we began to speak of them, not as objects, but as messengers. The scout, the ordinary, the rebel. Each one a letter delivered from another star system, each one written in a language we cannot yet translate. Together, they remind us of something we would rather forget, that the universe is vast, that our sample size is laughably small, that our understanding is provisional at best. Families can comfort us, they can also unsettle us. The interstellar family of Oumuamua, Borisov, and Atlas is both comforting, because it shows we are not alone in the galaxy's traffic. Unsettling, because each member breaks a different law, and together they form not order, but rebellion. What family comes next? What sibling waits in the dark, carrying a new contradiction, ready to upend what little certainty we have left? The green messenger does not answer. It simply glows, steady and green, holding its impossible course, adding its voice to the chorus of impossibilities. A family of paradoxes, written across the sky. When something strange appears in the heavens, America always notices. It is written into the culture, into the mythology of the 20th and 21st centuries. From Roswell in 1947 to the Pentagon's UAP hearings in 2023, the United States has lived with one eye on the sky, half in fear and half in hope. So when the news of Atlas spread an emerald comet from another star, venting without motion, carrying chemistry that defied nature, it was no surprise that America became the loudest stage for the story. The first reports were cautious, almost clinical. Reuters ran a headline about the third confirmed interstellar object, reminding readers that it posed no threat to Earth. NASA officials gave statements with rehearsed calm. This was a visitor, yes, but a harmless one, simply passing through. But caution doesn't sell, and soon the tone shifted. Live Science highlighted the strange carbon dioxide dominance, the nickel lines without iron. The debrief went further, running pieces that openly asked if Atlas might be stabilized by technology. The words, alien probe, slipped into mainstream coverage, and once they appeared, they could not be erased. Cable news debated it like politics. Anchors leaned forward across desks, their voices dropping low, as if intimacy made the question safer. Could this be artificial? Experts came on air, some rolling their eyes, others carefully hedging their language, trying not to be the next headline. But the speculation had already escaped the cage. By the end of September, TikTok feeds were flooded with short clips of the green comet, eerie music overlaid with captions like, "They're here." YouTube live streams counted down to perihelion, like it was a rocket launch. Amateur astronomers became influencers overnight, their telescopes pointed at the emerald glow, their streams filled with tens of thousands of viewers. In late-night comedy, Atlas became a punchline. The good news, one host joked, is that scientists say it won't hit Earth. The bad news? It might be watching. The audience laughed, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that masks unease. Humor has always been America's way of disarming fear. But behind the jokes was a gnawing question. What if this time it wasn't a joke at all? Politicians couldn't resist either. One senator quipped that if Atlas was an alien spacecraft, it should at least pay taxes. Another suggested, half serious, that the Pentagon ought to keep an eye on it, just in case. In hearings on unrelated topics, Atlas slipped into the conversation, an interstellar guest suddenly sharing stage time with budgets and border policy. It was theater, but theater matters. Theater shapes how a nation thinks. Meanwhile, the conspiracy forums roared to life. Threads bloomed with diagrams of cometary chemistry, speculation about Bracewell probes, comparisons between Atlas and Oumuamua. The silence from the great observatories only fed the fire. Why were Hubble and Webb so quiet? Why no glossy press releases, no stunning composite images like those that had been issued for Borisov? Official explanations spoke of scheduling conflicts, instrument maintenance, priorities elsewhere. But to the suspicious, the silence was the loudest signal of all. If it was ordinary, why weren't they showing us? And America listened, because America has always been primed to listen. This is the country that launched Voyager with golden records of our music. that imagined close encounters of the third kind on silver screens, that turned Area 51 into a cultural meme. The DNA of the nation includes both scientific achievement and speculative wonder. Atlas landed right in the middle of that fault line. For every astrophysicist warning patience, there was a podcaster warning invasion. For every sober article, there were 10 viral clips hinting at secrets hidden from the public. But it wasn't all paranoia. There was wonder, too. In small towns across the Midwest, families set up lawn chairs to watch the comet drift through the sky. Teachers brought telescopes to schoolyards, letting children peer at the green glow. Astronomical societies hosted public nights, crowded with people who had never looked through a telescope before. For them, Atlas was not a threat. It was a gift, a reminder that the universe still had the power to surprise, to draw our eyes upward away from screens and cities and noise. By October, America was watching with divided hearts, fear and awe, skepticism and wonder. The countdown to perihelion had become a cultural event, covered by CNN and Fox, live-streamed on YouTube, joked about on TikTok. Scientists raced to capture every photon, while millions of ordinary people simply stared upward, trying to wrap their minds around what it meant. Atlas had become more than an object. It was a mirror. To some, it reflected paranoia. To others, curiosity. To children, magic. To scientists, dread and excitement tangled together. In the American imagination, it became what comets have always been, a screen onto which we project our deepest hopes and fears. A green smear of light in the October sky, carrying not just atoms and dust, but meaning. And as the days ticked down toward perihelion, the chatter only grew louder. The question was no longer what is it? The question was, what will it do? Will it flare into brilliance? Will it fracture into pieces? Or will it glide past the sun unchanged, holding its impossible silence? America, restless, impatient, already hungry for answers, could only do the one thing it has always done best: watch the skies. October 2025. The month when everything sharpens, when every conversation about the green messenger narrows to one point on the calendar. Perihelion, the moment it brushes closest to the Sunday. It is the climax astronomers wait for, the trial by fire that defines a comet's story. Some blaze into brilliance, their tails stretching across half the sky. Some disintegrate in a sudden collapse, broken into dust and silence. Some pass unchanged, steady and inscrutable. No one knows which fate awaits Atlas, and so the world holds its breath. By the first week of October, the anticipation is electric. In observatories across the world, from Chile to Hawaii to the Canary Islands, every telescope is pointed at the Emerald Wanderer. NASA runs round-the-clock updates. European astronomers post cautious bulletins. Amateurs set up their rigs in backyards, deserts, mountaintops, their live streams pulling in thousands of viewers who want to watch history in real time. Atlas has become not just an object of study, but a shared event, a spectacle in the sky that unites people across continents. In America, the coverage feels like a countdown to a rocket launch. News anchors speak in hushed tones, clocks tick down on screen graphics. 10 days to perihelion, 7 days, 3 days. YouTube channels run live counters, comments flying faster than the telescopes can track. The mood is part science, part sport, part apocalypse. Will Atlas flare bright enough to rival Venus? Will it break apart like the sun grazers of the past? Or will it do something no comet has ever done? And through all the speculation, one fact remains: Atlas is fast. By mid-October, it is racing through the inner solar system at nearly 70 kilometers per second, fast enough to cross the United States in less than a minute. Its coma swells to sizes that defy imagination, hundreds of thousands of kilometers across, larger than Jupiter itself. Its green glow intensifies, visible now even to modest backyard scopes, a smear of emerald light in the night sky. For many, it no longer feels like science. It feels like theater, a performance written across the heavens. Inside observatories, the tension is unbearable. Data pours in, graphs climb, anomalies multiply. The CO2 dominance remains, the nickel lines stand strong, the iron absence persists. Every piece of chemistry screams foreign. The coma grows earlier and larger than models predict. And through it all, the trajectory stays steady, stubbornly free of non-gravitational acceleration. To the scientists, this is the paradox sharpened to a knife point. Every law says it should wobble. Every observation says it will not. And perihelion will not solve the paradox, it will only amplify it. For the public, the mood is more emotional. Families stand in fields at night, their children bundled in blankets, pointing at the faint green haze. Social media fills with images. Atlas over skylines, over deserts, over oceans, stitched together into a global scrapbook of awe. The sense is not just of watching, but of waiting for revelation, for climax, for some final act that will make sense of the strangeness. It is no longer just a comet, it is a story, and everyone is waiting for the next chapter. But stories are not always kind. Astronomers know this. Comets have a way of disappointing. Predictions of brilliance collapse into fizzles, promises of spectacle dissolve into dust. And yet, the hope persists. The hope that Atlas will deliver something unforgettable, something that will make the months of speculation worth it. That hope is part science, part faith. And as the days tick down, the faith grows stronger. By October 20th, the chatter reaches fever pitch. CNN runs primetime segments. TikTok churns out millions of views of time-lapse skies. Live streams show Atlas glowing faintly, then brighter, then fading into cloud cover, as audiences curse the weather like gamblers cursing dice. The world feels caught in a collective vigil, all eyes on the same green smudge, all waiting for the sun to test it. And then, the final days. October 27th, October 28th. The comet is a ghostly beacon now, its coma vast, its green light steady. Observatories hum with activity, scientists sleepless, knowing that every frame, every spectrum, every line of data may be the last before Atlas slips away forever. Governments issue no warnings, no reassurances. The silence from the great instrument's Hubble Webb remains unsettling. If they have data, they are not sharing it. If they have answers, they are not ready to speak, and that silence only sharpens the suspense. October 29th, the day of fire. Atlas races to within 1.36 astronomical units of the Sunday. Its speed is at maximum, its glow at peak. Telescopes worldwide are locked, live streams at capacity, news anchors struggling to keep their voices steady. It is the moment everyone has been waiting for, the moment the green messenger steps into the furnace. Will it flare? Will it fragment? Will it endure? No one can say. The only thing certain is this: the world is watching. And in that moment, under skies across the earth, billions of eyes turn upward. For the first time in years, humanity shares a single act of attention, not to war, not to politics, not to sports, but to a green smear of light streaking past the Sunday the countdown has ended. The trial has begun, October 29th, 2025. The day has finally arrived. After months of speculation, weeks of watching, and nights spent under anxious skies, the green messenger has reached its trial by fire, perihelion. The point of closest approach to the Sunday for a comet. It is the day of truth. Some blaze, some shatter, some fade. For Atlas, no one knows what will happen. In control rooms from Pasadena to Paris, from Hawaii to Chile, scientists crowd around monitors, their eyes red from sleepless nights. Data streams in like a heartbeat. Light curves climb, spectra bloom. Graphs twitch with each new reading. Atlas is racing at 70 kilometers per second, a green torch cutting through space, its coma swollen to more than 700,000 kilometers, dwarfing planets. It is bigger than Jupiter in size, yet fragile as frost, a cosmic paradox hurtling into the sun's furnace. Around the world, millions watch live streams. The chat feeds scroll too fast to read. Emojis of fire and aliens flood the screen. In backyards and city parks, families tilt their heads upward, hoping for a glimpse. In deserts and mountains, photographers set long exposures, their shutters clicking like nervous breaths. For a moment, the whole planet is synchronized, bound by a single act of attention, watching a green stranger face the Sunday. And then, it happens. Atlas enters the crucible. Sunlight lashes at it with intensity. Particles slam against its surface. Magnetic fields swirl. Any ordinary comet would flare, shedding tails of gas and dust in a brilliant display. Atlas does flare, but not as expected. Its green light intensifies, bright enough to rival the brightest stars. The coma shimmers like an emerald flame, expanding faster than models predict. But there is no fragmentation, no collapse, no catastrophic break. Instead, Atlas endures. The world gasps. Some had predicted a spectacular breakup, the kind that sprays fragments across the sky. Others had hoped for a Hale-Bopp moment, a comet bright enough to dominate the heavens. Instead, Atlas does something stranger. It holds steady. It burns, but it does not break. It glows, but it does not change. It behaves like a vessel crossing fire under deliberate command, a ship that knows how to sail through storms. For astronomers, the moment is agony and awe. The data confirms everything they feared. The CO2 dominance remains. The nickel lines sing without iron. The coma expands with unnatural symmetry. And still, the trajectory holds. No non-gravitational acceleration. No deviation. Atlas has faced the sun's fury and come through untouched, its paradox intact. Physics has not reclaimed it. The rebellion continues. For the public, the spectacle is enough. Images flood social media. A glowing green smear caught beside the sun, captured by coronagraphs and filtered cameras. Headlines scream, "Interstellar Comet Survives Solar Trial." News anchors smile with practiced wonder. Children are told they will remember this night forever. But beneath the wonder, unease spreads. Something that should have shattered has not. Something that should have bent has remained unbroken. Atlas looks less like a comet now, and more like a question burning across the sky. In the silence after perihelion, scientists trade glances that speak louder than words. They have no simple explanations left. The comet has played its part, and the part makes no sense. Some whisper that it is stabilized, controlled, deliberate. Others insist it must be natural, just beyond our models, too alien to categorize but still a child of nature. No consensus forms. The data is too strange, too clean, too sharp. And Atlas does not wait for answers. It keeps moving, rushing away from the sun, outbound now, outbound forever. It will never return. Its path is hyperbolic, its fate sealed, to fade into the deep night between stars. The day of fire has passed, and Atlas has emerged not as ash, but as riddle. In ancient times, comets were feared as omens, hairy stars that foretold the death of kings. In the 20th century, they became science, catalogued, modeled, explained. In the 21st, with Atlas, they have become something else. A mystery, too big for certainty, too strange for comfort, too real to ignore. On October 29th, 2025, humanity watched a stranger walk through fire and refuse to fall. And in that defiance, the question sharpened to a blade: what exactly have we just witnessed? By November, the green messenger was already slipping away. The spectacle of perihelion had come and gone, but the story was not finished. After fire comes silence. After brilliance comes fading. And so, Atlas began its long retreat into darkness. For astronomers, the weeks after perihelion are precious. The data must be gathered quickly, before the comet grows too faint to study. Telescopes around the world pointed toward the shrinking emerald haze, capturing spectra, light curves, final images before the signal sank into noise. The numbers confirmed what many already feared. Atlas had defied expectations again. It had not shattered, not fractured, not dissolved into dust. It had emerged intact, its coma swollen, its chemistry unchanged, its path steady. It was leaving exactly as it had arrived, green, impossible, and silent. For the public, the story began to fade as well. The live streams ended, the headlines quieted, the comedians moved on to other jokes. But for those who had watched, those who had felt the awe of October nights under the emerald light, the memory lingered. Parents told children they would remember this comet, the way earlier generations remembered Hale-Bopp or Halley. Photographers sifted through thousands of exposures, stitching together the last great portraits of the stranger. In deserts and mountains, amateur astronomers took final glimpses, knowing they were saying goodbye to something they might never see again. By mid-November, Atlas was already too faint for the naked eye. Only telescopes could still find it, a dim smudge retreating into the background of stars. By December, even large amateur scopes struggled. By January, Only professional observatories with long exposures could track its fading trail, and by February, it was gone. Outbound, hyperbolic, lost to the dark forever. The fade was not dramatic. There was no spectacular breakup, no dazzling final act. It was quiet, almost gentle, a ghost slipping through a door, leaving only the echo of its presence. But sometimes, silence is more unsettling than noise. The comet had carried mysteries that should have been solved by the furnace of the Sunday. Instead, it had carried them through untouched. CO2 dominance, nickel without iron, non-gravitational acceleration missing, green glow too strong, too early. None of it was resolved. All of it was leaving with the comet. For scientists, the frustration was immense. They had months of data, terabytes of spectra, countless measurements, but no answers. The papers that followed were filled with cautious language. Anomalous, unexplained, further study required. Behind the caution was something rawer: defeat. They had stared at the stranger, measured it, dissected it, and still it refused to yield its truth. It had come, it had passed, it had gone, and all it left was a pile of questions heavier than before. And yet there was awe too. Awe that we had seen it at all. Awe that our telescopes, our machines, our eyes had captured a visitor from another star. Awe that, for a few short months, humanity had shared the same act of attention, billions looking upward, billions remembering that the universe is alive with wanderers. The fade was not just loss, it was reminder, a reminder that we are small, fragile, temporary, and that the cosmos is vast, strange, and still full of secrets. In quiet corners of the internet, the speculation never faded. To some, Atlas was proof of alien design, a probe disguised as a comet, stabilized by technology beyond our understanding. To others, it was simply nature in her strangest dress, a sample of chemistry and physics too exotic for our limited categories. For most, it was somewhere in between, a story that reminded us we do not yet know enough, that the universe is wider than our certainty. By the time Atlas disappeared from our skies, it had already become legend, a line in the astronomical catalogue. 3 I divided by Atlas, a memory in the minds of those who saw it, a subject of endless debate in scientific journals and conspiracy forums alike, a ghost of emerald fire fading into silence. And so, the green messenger left us, as it had arrived, quietly, steadily, refusing to explain itself. Its path was hyperbolic, its departure permanent. It will never return. It has slipped beyond our reach, outbound into the interstellar night, carrying its riddles to another corner of the galaxy. Perhaps, one day, another world will see it. Another people will watch its green glow and ask the same questions we asked. Until then, all we have is memory. The fade is complete. The sky is dark again, but those who saw it know the truth. For a brief time, the universe wrote a question in green across our heavens, and then it left, fading not into answers, but into mystery. Every comet tells a story. Some tell of frozen beginnings, of dust left over from the birth of our Sunday. Some tell of impact and extinction, of worlds reshaped by wandering ice. But Atlas told a different story. Or rather, it refused to tell one at all. It came, it burned, it defied, and it left, leaving us not with answers but with questions sharper than before. And in those questions lies meaning. The first meaning is scientific. Atlas broke the rules of cometary physics and chemistry. It vented gas without acceleration. It carried carbon dioxide in dominance where water should rule. It sang with nickel lines but left iron silent. It glowed green too early, too bright. Each anomaly is a challenge, a crack in the models that have guided us for decades. To scientists, this is a gift disguised as frustration. Every broken rule is a doorway to discovery. If Atlas is natural, then it proves that the galaxy is stranger than we thought, its comets more diverse, its chemistry more exotic. It means our textbooks are not wrong, but unfinished. Atlas is not an answer, but a reminder that we have barely begun to read the universe. The second meaning is cultural. Humanity has always seen comets as mirrors. In ancient times, they were omens of disaster, hairy stars that foretold the fall of kings. In the modern era, they became symbols of wonder, spectacular but explainable, folded neatly into science. But Atlas broke that comfort. It reignited the old unease, the sense that something in the sky could still be both beautiful and terrifying, both real and inexplicable. For America, it became part of a cultural continuum stretching from Roswell to Hollywood sci-fi, from Apollo to the Pentagon's UAP hearings. For the world, it became a shared moment of awe. Billions of eyes turned upward, united not in fear or war, but in wonder. That alone is meaning, proof that even in an age of distraction, the sky can still command our attention. The third meaning is speculative, and it is the one that lingers in whispers. If Atlas is not natural, what then? If its stability was deliberate, if its chemistry was chosen, if its glow was a signal, then what does that make it? A probe? A messenger? A test? The very act of asking those questions changes us. For centuries, we have wondered if we are alone. Oumuamua, Borisov, and now Atlas, each has shifted the debate. Atlas, most of all, sharpened the possibility that the answer is no, that we are being watched, or visited, or measured in ways we cannot yet understand. For most scientists, this remains taboo. For the public, it is irresistible. And perhaps that tension is itself part of the meaning. Atlas is a reminder that science and imagination are not enemies, but partners in confronting the unknown. And then there is the deepest meaning of all, humility. Atlas reminds us that we are small, fragile, provisional, that our models are temporary, our categories incomplete, our certainty a thin shell over a sea of mystery. It reminds us that the universe is alive with wanderers, that our solar system is not an island but a crossroads, that the sky we think of as ours is shared with strangers. It tells us that we do not yet know enough, and perhaps never will. And that is not defeat, that is invitation. Because meaning is not always about answers. Sometimes it is about questions. Atlas means we are still capable of wonder. It means the universe can still surprise us. It means we are part of a story too big for us to write alone. The green messenger did not come to explain itself. It came to remind us that mystery is not gone, that even now, in the 21st century, under neon skies and satellite swarms, the cosmos can still pull us outside, tilt our heads upward, and make us feel small in the best possible way. Atlas is gone, but its meaning remains, in data, in memory, in wonder, in the quiet realization that the sky is not finished with us yet. By February of 2026, the green messenger was gone, not destroyed, not shattered, not dissolved into dust, but gone, in the way a ship disappears over the horizon, still moving, still whole, but beyond our sight. For weeks after perihelion, astronomers chased its fading glow, catching dim smudges in long exposures, straining every photon from the night sky. But each night, Atlas grew weaker, smaller, more distant. By January, it was a ghost. By February, it was nothing at all. The catalogue carried its name 3I divided by Atlas, interstellar, outbound, but the sky was empty. The fade was quiet, almost gentle. No dramatic fireworks, no spectacular death. Just the slow retreat of a question too large for us to answer. The silence it left was heavier than sound. For a time, humanity had been united by its presence. Families had gathered in fields to watch. Scientists had filled terabytes with data. Artists and poets had found new metaphors in its emerald glow. And then, just as suddenly, it was gone. The visitor had slipped back into the interstellar dark, carrying its riddles with it. But disappearance does not mean erasure. Atlas lingers in memory, in the photographs of amateurs who stayed up all night in the desert, catching its green streak against the stars, in the data archives of observatories, filled with spectral lines that refuse to fit our models, in the minds of children who saw it for the first time and whispered to themselves that the universe was alive, and in the quiet conversations of scientists who, even now, wonder if they witnessed not just a comet, but something more. There is a melancholy in the fade. We spend months chasing, studying, speculating, only to be left with absence. And yet, there is beauty in it too. The beauty of knowing that the universe still has the power to astonish. The beauty of remembering that not every story ends with certainty. Some end with mystery, and that mystery is its own kind of gift. Atlas came, and Atlas left, and in between it reminded us that the cosmos is vast enough to surprise, strange enough to unsettle, generous enough to make us feel small. What does it mean to watch something fade into darkness? It means accepting that we do not own the sky. It means realizing that not every visitor is ours to keep, not every question is ours to answer. It means humility, and maybe, in that humility, it means hope. Because if one stranger came, another can too. If 3 have already passed through Oumuamua, Borisov, Atlas, then surely a 4th is waiting, inbound even now, unseen, unrecognized, ready to write the next question across our heavens. And so, the story does not truly end. Atlas is gone, but its legacy remains, a memory of green fire, a challenge to physics, a whisper of chemistry that does not belong, a silence from the great observatories that still feels louder than words. It is a reminder carved into the night sky that we are not finished, that the universe is not finished with us, that the dialogue between Earth and the stars is only beginning. Fade into darkness, that is how Atlas left us. But in the quiet after it was gone, the world felt different, a little more uncertain, a little more fragile, but also a little more alive. For in the end, the meaning of the green messenger was not in its answers, but in its questions. And those questions will echo long after its emerald light has vanished, carried in the memories of those who dared to look up and wonder. So, look at the night sky tonight. It will seem empty, but remember that once, not long ago, a stranger passed through. Remember the green glow. Remember the defiance of physics. Remember the silence of its retreat. Remember Atlas. And know this: the darkness is not empty. It is alive with travelers. One day, another will come. One day, the sky will ask us again. Until then, we wait, we watch, we wonder, and we remember the visitor who came in silence, burned with questions, and faded into darkness.